Thank you for tuning in. I am Tej Choksi, an assistant professor at NTU Singapore, and today I will relate a story about how we can extract interesting physical insights using simple data-driven approaches in catalyst design. All the work presented here was performed during my PhD studies at Purdue and during my postdoc at Stanford. So I'd like to acknowledge my supervisors, Dr. Frank Abel Pedersen and Professor Jeff Creeley, and co-authors on the manuscripts, Dr. Verena Streibel and Dr. Paulami Majumdar. All the work was funded by the Department of Energy and NSF. In my own independent research group at NTU Singapore, I have one opening for a postdoc candidate. Feel free to get in touch if you are interested. Volcano plots have immense utility in terms of catalyst design. These plots relate the rates of reactions to simple catalytic descriptors, thus distilling the process of catalyst design to simply finding candidate active sites in the regions where rates are highest. Over the last few years, we have transitioned from using simple crystal structure descriptions of these active site moieties, moving towards more sophisticated descriptions that explicitly account for the active site identity, its morphology, like the coordination number, and the chemical environment surrounding it. This transition from crystal structures to atomic level detail has largely been powered by data science in catalysis. I shall briefly describe two of the many flavors of methods used by this community. First one being compressed sensing, where catalytic descriptors like binding energies of key species are correlated to a series of features, giving you mathematical expressions that are interpretable. In fact, sometimes these expressions can be reduced down to the very physical models guiding such kind of relationships. On the other side, we have neural networks which relate catalytic descriptors to features for the structure and composition of the active site. These methods, being slightly more data intensive, need to rely on databases like Catalysis Hub or the Open Catalyst database by Zach Ulissi for fitting such neural networks. And the rapid evolution of these databases is certainly going to promote such techniques in the future. Our approach to data science and catalysis is to build interpretable reduced order models such that these models are a launchpad for developing their computationally complex incarnations. We emphasize that we would like models having smaller training sets such that they are more agile, versatile, and nimble. Today, I will discuss two stories. The first one highlighting how we can very simply relate the energy of metal atoms in terms of the local structure and composition using a very simple physics-based paradigm. In the second story, I will illustrate the different physical forms that popular scaling relations take at bifunctional interfaces. At Suncat, we've been developing the alloy stability model, which predicts energies of metal atoms with site-by-site precision. Within our ansatz, we partition the energy of metal atoms in terms of contributions arising from each individual bond. So if you have a 9-coordinated atom, you have one contribution for the first 3 bonds the metal makes, and then the remaining contributions reflecting the remaining bonds. Here are a series of publications from Frank Abel Pedersen's group discussing the alloy stability model, and do check these out for more detail. The energies so determined can be used to calculate catalyst stability metrics in real time, such as the stability of atomic sites, cohesive energies of nanoparticles, surface energies, and segregation energies. In focus in today's talk is the size of the training set needed. We need a modest 17 DFT calculations to train each monometallic system and about 70 DFT calculations for a bimetallic system. Through my presentation, we seek to address two fundamental questions. First, can we further reduce these training sets by looking at how the energy varies as a function of structure and composition? Second, what do these alpha parameters mean? Like, we know physically they reflect the differential energy of each bond formed, but can we extract some more insights from our model parameterization? So to do so, we will first look at how energy varies as a function of coordination number for a fixed chemical composition, for instance, palladium. We see that the energy as a function of coordination number can be represented by a quadratic fit. And this quadratic fit is quite accurate, as shown over here, where the black lines represent the quadratic fit and the data points represent full DFT training sets. We show that by using a simple set of 6 DFT calculations in the training set, one can determine these sort of quite accurate quadratic fits for energy as a function of coordination number. All it needs is finding 3 parameters, A, B, and C. In this way, we have now represented energy as a function of coordination number using a simple reduced order model. Let us now see how does the energy vary for a given coordination number in terms of varying composition. Here, we focus on the differential energy gained in forming each bond, the alpha parameters. We find that for 12 FCC metals from the D and P block, the alpha parameters are linearly correlated to the cohesive energies. This is not sort of unexpected because what we have is differences between alpha parameters for, say, Z2 and Z1 being proportional to the differences in cohesive energies between Z2 and Z1. Since the alpha parameters represent the differential energy gained in forming the nth bond, and the cohesive energies represent the energy for forming all 12 bonds in the FCC bulk, it's expected that the two are related. We have constructed such relationships between alpha parameters and the cohesive energy for each of the coordination numbers in consideration. So now we have represented energy as a function of coordination number for a fixed Z and alpha parameters as a function of cohesive energy for a fixed N. So can we reconcile the two to sort of determine all the alpha parameters at any N and Z? And we have a simple 3-step process to do so. First, we select 4 metals well spaced in their cohesive energies. We use the quadratic fit to determine the energies of these metal atoms as a function of their coordination numbers. In step 2, we now fit individual alpha parameters in terms of the cohesive energies of each of the 4 metals. This results in linear correlations between alpha parameters and the cohesive energies. Thus, by using simply 24 DFT calculations, we have fitted the 5 parameters needed to determine the bond-associated alpha parameters for any value of Z at any coordination number N. Now, if we have a new material Z1 in an FCC crystal structure taken anywhere from the periodic table, one simply has to use its cohesive energy to determine the corresponding bond-associated alpha parameters. Once we have these bond-associated parameters, we can readily use them to determine things like cohesive energies, segregation energies, nanoparticle site stabilities, crystal plane surface energies, and so on. Like lots of catalyst stability metrics are open to us. Thus, we show that using the simple ansatz and further representing energy as a function of coordination number and composition, we only need 24 DFT calculations to fit our model. So how does this work? 24 versus 204. On the left-hand side, we have the parity plot for atomic site stabilities on surfaces. On the right-hand side, we have the parity plot on 147 atom nanoparticles in the borderline region between finite size and nanoparticles which are more like bulk. We see that our mean average errors are quite consistent, well within what is expected, what the expected error is for a catalyst design formalism. This validates our approach of simplifying our model in terms of the quadratic and linear functions using simply 24 DFT calculations to look at the stabilities of any of these metals in any structure and any composition, so long as it's outside the finite size limit of nanoparticles. Let us now switch gears and understand how such reduced order models help unravel scaling relations at bifunctional interfaces. We will use gold on MgO as a model system because gold has low strain on MgO And gold also has low coverage of adsorbates. We will be modulating the electronic properties of the interface very precisely by using dopants. Doing so simply changes the electronic properties while leaving the structural aspects largely unchanged. We will focus on reaction intermediates in the water gas shift and methanol synthesis reaction, and we will dope about 15 different dopants, which are low and high valent, cationic and anionic, in various locations of the MgO lattice. And our goal is to create scaling relations between catalytic descriptors, say OH and O, popularly used in electrocatalysis and even a little bit in thermal catalysis. I'll get a little pedagogic here. On the left, on the y-axis, we have the binding energy of OH. On the x-axis, the binding energy of oxygen, and a linear scaling relationship across all the dopants considered in all locations and for a variety of nanowire shapes as well. And in each case, we find that the slope is 0.68. There are no fewer than 80 data points on the scaling relationship, and we find pretty good statistics, and at the slope being 0.68. The slope is critical to understand because bond order principles dictate that the slope for OH versus O should be zero point 0.5. And this relationship has been shown on metals, oxides, and zeolites. But somehow, when we have two functions in close synergy with each other, the slope now convincingly deviates from 0.5 to 0.68. This deviation has been observed not just for OH versus O, but for other adsorbates as well. And it begs the question, why? Before answering the question why, this is our histogram of over 1700 data points showing that these linear scaling relationships on an average have very low errors of 0.05 EV for intermediates having C1, N1, and O1 structures from the methanol synthesis, NO chemistries, and water gas shift chemistry pathways. So let's try and unravel why is it that these slopes are different. To do so, we understand charge transfer at the metal support interface. And we will look at the multipole expansion of energy in terms of charge-charge, charge-dipole, and dipole-dipole interactions. A metal on an oxide generates polarization at the interface, and we will now understand how each of these terms interact. For the sake of time, we will be focusing on the charge-dipole term in maroon, and the remaining terms, if you all are interested, please refer to the manuscript. We find that the binding energy of any adsorbate, for instance oxygen, is linearly correlated to the interface dipole. Writing this expression below, we have the binding energy proportional to some constants and the interface dipole. This expression looks very much like the first term of the multipole expansion where we are focusing on this charge-dipole interaction. We can write such an expression for a species AHX and also for a species A. Eliminate the interface dipole between these two equations, and we come up with a mathematical equation which represents very much what the scaling relationship looks like. Correlations between the binding energy of an adsorbate A versus AHX. If our formalism was correct, then the slope of our scaling relations should be linked to the ratio of the beta charges for the two adsorbates. And that is precisely what we have here, where the slopes of the scaling relationships for multiple adsorbates are actually linked to the ratio of beta charges. This sort of proves that it is electrostatic effects giving rise to scaling relations at interfaces and creating scaling relations that deviate from the well-known constraints that often limit our candidates in a volcano plot. So to conclude, I spoke about two stories. The first one looking at metal-metal interactions more efficiently, and we develop a remarkably simple model that represents energy as a function of coordination number, requiring only 24 DFT calculations to train for any FCC metal having any structure as long as it's above the finite size limit. We also looked at the physical form of scaling relations at metal oxide interfaces. And we showed that using the multipole expansion, these scaling relations are actually linked to electrostatic effects, with the slopes being linked to the ratio of beta charges. Through these studies, We have now developed our sort of foundation upon which we can launch off into more sophisticated data driven models that expand a much wider range of structures and compositions. Thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to our interactions throughout the AICHE meeting.